Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Tuesday night. We just got a superstar commitment as we were coming on the air. We're going to break down his film. We have a huge quarterback decision coming up pretty quick here. We have a lot of great stuff going on. Spring ball is cranked up. Little different week this week. They're going to practice on Friday. Ryan Day's going to give them the weekend off for Easter. I actually kind of love that. So it's going to be a really interesting stretch as we head into the spring game. But first, as always, we're going to always thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. The channel has been growing like crazy. Our site has been growing like crazy. The way that we're recruiting is absolutely insane. This is a kid that I broke down a couple of nights ago, Mylan Graham. Absolute dynamic, explosive speed, rare speed. He's an Indiana kid. I feel like if he was in Georgia or Texas or Florida, he'd probably be, ranked even higher, but he is a different beast. He's a totally different body type from JJ Smith, but he's an absolute terror out wide. He's a guy that you got to manufacture touches for because he has that rare speed. He's an absolute monster, and I love his film. We're going to get into that shortly. But first, we're going to bring in my good friend at Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. But what a great day. Buckeyes get a huge. This kid, I might be as excited about this kid as I am any commitment in the class. This is a kid that not a lot of people were talking about. But the first time I saw him, I was like, man, definitely the best wide receiver ever to come out of the state of Indiana. One of the best receivers that I've ever seen in the Midwest in a very, very long time. So this is a big one, big get for Ohio State. Hartline continues on his just otherworldly role of wide receiver talent. And when you get the wide receiver talent, that means you're going to get the quarterbacks next. So it just the rich keep getting richer, and we are indeed rich as Ohio State fans.
Yeah, it's incredible. Here's his profile. Again, he's out of New Haven, Indiana. So it's really not a super fertile recruiting ground normally, but when you watch his tape, he's every bit of a 5-star. I think he should be a consensus 5-star. I will not take him over JJ Smith, but I don't think any high school receiver out over JJ Smith, but any other year, this kid's number one. Explosive, dynamic, just a guy that I'm going to get right into the film because honestly, I can say it, but he can show it better than I can tell it. This is one of those guys where, it literally takes one clip. We're going to get right into it, and it is explosive. Here they are on about the 5-yard line. They got him out wide at the Z, which is the speed receiver. And again, like there's, you got angles, and gets the ball, and just explosive speed. You see when he opens it up into that 6th gear, it's gonzo. And again, this is a kid that he's a dynamic kick returner, punt returner. He actually has an interception in this because it was kind of interesting because I know that obviously, Brian Hartline brought him in as a receiver, but God, if I was this kid, I'd try to figure out a way to play corner because corners get paid a lot in the league. And, I think that receivers are more of a dime a dozen than big time cornerbacks are, but you see the punt return, you see the speed. Nevada, we're a couple plays in. What are your thoughts on this kid? Like, cause I can't imagine the different ways that you'd want to try to get this kid the ball to just get him out in space and let him get loose.
Well, I know when Ohio State first saw tape of the kid, they honestly thought the tape had been kind of enhanced, kind of speeded up, and that was literally the consensus is the tape had to have been enhanced, and then they figured out that it hadn't been, and this kid really is that fast. And he's one of those rare kids. He reminds me, and I hate to make a comparison like this because I apologize. Much like I like to apologize to Orlando Pace for the disrespect that he received on the channel. I'm going to say he gets up to speed kind of like Ted Ginn got up to speed. How Teddy was up to speed in full speed in like 2 or 3 strides. This kid has got that same kind of ability. He's Ted Ginn-like in terms of his ability to get up to top speed very quickly, which makes him a very dynamic, return man. And as you said, on the outside, that kind of big speed will, it's the reason why Ted Ginn survived in the NFL for 15 years or whatever, some ridiculous amount of time in the NFL as a wide receiver. This guy's just going to be a big time college player and a great addition to the Ohio State arsenal.
Yeah, I'm excited about him. Getting 2 more 5-star wide receivers with him and JJ Smith coming in. It's unnatural to recruit that good, but there's a formula. Like the plan is infallible. If you come play for Brian Hartline, you play in Ryan Day's offense, and you put in the work and you grind and you do everything they tell you to do, you're going to be a first round pick. So, I mean, it's been tried and true since Brian's taken that room over. I mean, even going back to Zach Smith, when he had Terry McLaurin, who's making $23 million a year now, and some of the guys that he had, Michael Thomas, who set the catches record, that room has been on an upswing. Really, I mean, it's hard to say that it was ever a downswing. Maybe in the mid to late 2000s. But when I was there, we had Ted and Santonio and Gonzo. We had 3 first rounders on the field at one time. Michael Jenkins was the guy that I played with as a first rounder. So that room has been a very prestigious room, but it's never been at a level like this where, I mean, these guys they end up being top 10 picks. Obviously, Jackson Smith and Jigba is a likely top 10 pick. Marvin and Emeka next year, likely top 10 to 15 picks. Marvin could probably be a top 5 pick. So, I think that these guys are starting to figure out that when you have this kind of ability, it's all about the scheme and it's all about the quarterback, and the way Ohio State's recruiting quarterbacks, I think these guys know that, hey, we got to go somewhere where the quarterback can get us the ball, because if you got a guy like this and he goes somewhere where the quarterback situation isn't great, the offense isn't great, then you don't get to see this kind of talent flourish the way you get to see it here. But like I said, I love this kid's ability. Again, I love speed. I think everybody loves speed, but when you see how it can kind of terrorize a defense, you get excited about it. And again, like JJ is, because it's not like JJ's. Like JJ's a top 10 nationally ranked hurdler in Florida. Got top 10 national time. He's that fast, and he is a big put together monster. Like I said, he's like a Megatron, Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones type. But this guy with his speed and really with his kick return ability is something I love. He's accustomed to fielding punts, kickoff returns, that whole bit. So, I love guys that are used to that. They're good at that, and they can do something with it. Because like I said, I play with Ted Ginn, and there's nothing greater in the world than when you're standing there as an offensive lineman, get ready to go on the field, watching Ted field a punt, and he runs it back to the crib, and then all of a sudden you get to go sit back on the bench. Like, that's the greatest thing in the world. So guys that can do that, big thumbs up. So, but now Nevada, we're near the end of the tape. We'll run it through again. What are your thoughts through the first 30 plays or so of his highlight film?
Well, again, he's just an amazing player. He's like you said, he's got that rare type of separation speed that you can't teach. It's hard to find. All the fast guys in high school look about the same speed, but this is different level speed. Ohio State sees that. That's why this is such an important day. And you think about what this impact has on the quarterback recruiting. I mean, the calculus is pretty clear. If you're a wide receiver, you come to Ohio State, as you said, you can end up as a first round pick. Same thing, quarterbacks. Ohio State had never had a first round quarterback, or I guess since Art Schlichter or whatever. And then Ryan Day comes, and you go Haskins, Fields, C.J. Stroud, and people have to remember that C.J. Stroud. It wasn't like C.J. Stroud was brought in as like the next big thing at Ohio State. I mean, it was C.J. Stroud was just I'm not saying he was just a guy, but he wasn't a 5-star, can't miss, top of everybody's board. And Ryan Day is going to turn him into the number 1 pick in the draft, or a top 5 pick at worst. So Ryan Day is certainly the magic man when it comes to quarterbacks, and you keep doing it with wide receivers like this, and that's come on down here, Noland, because you're going to have some guys to throw to, and they're going to be open, and everybody's going to get paid and go to the next level and be happy.
Yeah, I think that the culture is really unique on offense right now with Brian Hartline's room and with Corey Dennis and Ryan Day's quarterback room. Obviously Todd Finch is really involved in that room as well. Even guys that aren't playing, this year or even next year, they stick because they know they're getting developed and they know when it's their turn. If they put up 1 productive year or 2 productive years, a la Jameson Williams did it, at his tail end of his Ohio State career, and then at Bama, they could be top 10 picks. Like they're there to get conditioned, they're there to get trained. And when it's their time to shine, it's their time to shine. Like again, like we were as high as anybody on Jaden Ballard last year during bowl practice, because I had direct reports from people that were at bowl practice saying, wow, this kid is special. This kid, then we get to the game, he doesn't play at all. And they had stuff, jet sweeps and reverses and that kind of stuff for him to get him manufactured touches. And then when it came game time, they didn't play him. But, then they let him run at Pro Day. And at Pro Day, the scouts are wowed by Jaden Ballard's speed and, his ability to track a deep ball, which not every guy can do it the way Jaden can. But it was a question in the chat. It's a great question. Is this the next Jaden Ballard? And I don't think it is. I think that this kid has, and Jaden can float. He can absolutely fly, but I think this kid has more top end speed. I think this kid's shiftier. This kid's much more highly regarded coming out of high school than Jaden was. I think Jaden was maybe a low 4-star, high 3-star. This kid's a 5-star. And again, stars don't mean everything, but I think this kid has a different gear coming out of high school than even Jaden had. Again, Jaden, has it's been said many times he is the fastest player on the team right now, but I think that this kid has got even a different gear, and this kid's shiftier than Jaden. Jaden, I don't think he has the agility and the side to side movement that a kid like this has. But Jaden can roast guys. It'll be interesting to see how much work he gets at the Z. How many reps he takes from Julian Fleming. Obviously, he's taking a big advantage of Emeka and Julian not doing anything, Marvin being limited in the spring. So, but I think this kid's got a higher ceiling than Jaden Ballard. But that being said, I mean, in a year, Jaden Ballard could be a mid-round pick if he goes and pops off a 4.25. I'm not talking about after this next year, but in 2 years, he's not going to leave after 3 years like Marvin and Emeka will. But he's a guy that in another year. He goes and runs that 4.44, 4.35, 4.30. Scouts love that. And then he'll work out great. He's nice kid, so he doesn't have any issues off the field. So I think that he could be an easy mid-round guy because that's just kind of the trust that they have in Brian Hartline. Brian Hartline will say, look, he's a kid that he's taken a little bit of time, but he's also been mature. He sat behind first-round picks because people always question his production, but I think this kid has a higher ceiling than Jaden Ballard does. Nevada, I am going to shift to our boy, our quarterback, soon to be. It's funny because I feel like when all these edits and all these commitments come out, that a lot of it is spacing. It's like each guy kind of takes their day. Because the next guy up is Aaron Noland, and that's a guy that we've projected to Ohio State for a while. He's a South Florida Express kid, lefty again from Georgia. I feel like this is our 5th podcast where we've broken down Aaron Noland, but he's finally likely to commit to us this weekend. But your thoughts on Air? Again, there's, he's not as heralded as Dylan Raiola, but he's a million times more productive than Dylan Raiola. Plays Georgia high school football, not Arizona high school football. Just massive productivity, 55 touchdown passes, 4,095 yards, 73% completion. State champion, broke the record for most points, 792 points, major production. But what are your thoughts on Air as it, the equal signs are out, the crystal balls are out, everything's pointing to him coming to Ohio State now. What are your thoughts on Air?
Well, my thoughts were that, there needed to be a subsequent act. There needed, Ohio State wanted Noland to come up to Ohio State one more time, and he did it. And he came up and he left with his offer, and I mean, the word is that's it, and that Noland's going to be a Buckeye. So, I think what's great about a situation like this is that it's a situation where Ohio State wanted a kid that really wanted to be a Buckeye, and Noland really wanted to be wanted by a program, and Ohio State's really kind of rolled out the red carpet for him. Really told him that he's the guy. And again, when you just look at the arsenal of receivers, you talk about the Rogers boys, and Cornell Tate, and Brandon Ennis, and J.J. Smith, and I mean, it just goes on. You just go on and on and on and on and on. What quarterback wouldn't want to play in this system, and which quarterback wouldn't want to be developed by Ryan Day? So Ayers, he's not a traditional 7-on-7 quarterback. He's not a precision passer per se, even though he's been precise enough. But like you said, he's super productive. He's super athletic, and again, I think this shows a kind of an evolution as to Ryan Day's thinking about the quarterback position. I think Ryan Day for a little bit was kind of locked into hey, we just want the quarterbacks to just be passers, don't run, as evidenced by the C.J. Stroud no rushing touchdowns in 2 years, which is an almost impossible stat. But I think a quarterback like Ayers is a different breed, and the quarterback, Lincoln from South Dakota is a different breed as well. And, I think Ohio State's kind of evolving. I think Ryan Day's evolving as he's kind of embracing more about the college game. And I think that everybody's entitled to kind of an evolution, an offensive evolution. And I think Ryan's latest offensive evolution is just going to make the OSU offense just that much more dangerous and difficult to defend. So I'm really excited about it and can't wait for Noland to be a Buckeye.
Yeah, like I said, I've said multiple times, I met him down in Naples when the South Florida Express was playing a tournament at the sports park down there. Great kid, really, surprisingly like built. Like I mean, like I don't want to say like a bodybuilder, but I mean he's a muscular. You can tell the kid puts in a lot of work in the weight room. Really has an absolute cannon for an arm. Like I mean, like I said, I was talking to him and JJ, and they were playing catch, and Air was throwing it, 100 miles an hour from 10 yards away. And I was like, you might want to take a little bit off the laser beam ball, the rocket ball, but really nice kid. Again, I think that's something that, I think Ryan has to realize in the face of, NIL and getting big guys and big tackles and that kind of thing is mobility and durability. I think is something that, you got to put a premium on. I think that, a part of the reason why CJ Stroud didn't have a single rushing touchdown over the last 2 years is because he had incredibly, talented offensive linemen, incredibly talented pass protectors, Paris Johnson, Nick Petit-Frere, Thayer, Luke Whippler, DeJuan. Those are all NFL guys, like early top 3 round draft picks. Thayer is a guy that slid. He should have been a top 3 round draft pick, played for the Raiders a lot last year. But I think that, when you don't have that luxury of just the top tier O-line guys like we've had that Greg Sudar brought in, you have to, have some guys that can move a little bit. And this kid can run. He's a guy that they show him running read option in here. They're running more read option this spring than I think they have in Ryan Day's entire career. In practice now with Devin Brown and with even Kyle McCord, especially down in the short red zone. I think that's the Justin Fry influence. So you got to remember, Justin Fry is a Chip Kelly disciple as much as Ryan is, but Justin wants to do everything he can to help his offensive lineman out and help the running game out. And the read option is terribly difficult to defend, especially if you have a guy that can run. And it makes your life a lot easier on offensive line when you don't have an unblocked defender in the box. That read actually it's like having an extra blocker. So, they've been running it in the short red area with a lot of efficiency. They've been shredding the defense with it. And I think that that's something that Eric can do. And I think that Devin Brown could do it. And I even think Kyle McCord could do it in a pinch. But I think that as, if something happens on the line, it never hurts to have guys that are ultra athletic and guys that aren't just statues back there, because this kid, like when he gets out in space, like he knows how to go, and he knows how to get to the end zone, and he's a tough kid. Again, I'm excited about him. Like I know that, we had Dylan Raiola, it was initially like 2 years ago, it was Jaden Davis. Now it's Dylan Raiola. Now we're to Air. But you see the production. The production is A++. Georgia football A++. He's a player of the year in Georgia, which tells me all I need to know, especially as a junior when normally seniors win those types of awards. And I think that he's got a lot of upside. I think that he needs to be coached up. I think that he needs to improve his touch a little bit. Like I said, take a little bit of the napalm off the short range throws, but. He's got a lot of upside, and he's a worker, which is something that I love. He's a guy that is a grinder. He's a guy that wants to be better. And as long as you're like that, and you can take really hard coaching from Ryan Day, because Ryan Day, you got to understand, he is not for the faint of heart when it comes to coaching a quarterback. He is very tough on quarterbacks, and I think Air thrives off that. I think that he's the kind of kid that really, he comes from a really well coached program. And I think he's got a lot of upside. I think that it'll be interesting to see when we look back at the quarterback rankings between Jaden Davis and Dylan Raiola and Air, who ends up where. Because, I always look at infrastructure, and, Air is going to J.J. Smith, Brandon Ennis, Carnell Tate, Ryan Day, Brian Hartline. It's, Mylan Graham. Like, he's got the best receiver group that you could ever dream to walk into. And I think that matters. I really do. Nevada, as we watched this film, I was joking the other night because his film is literally 15 minutes long. Everyone else's highlight is like 5-6 minutes. His is so long. It's the longest one I've ever downloaded. But your thoughts on Air as we watch him, and we watched him multiple times, but he does have a fun film to watch.
Well, no, he does. He does it all, and he's the kind of quarterback that I love, and I think it's the kind of quarterback that you need to have in 2023. But I was just reflecting, just as you were naming that incoming wide receiver group. I mean, this is probably, maybe it's the obvious, maybe it's a crazy statement, but has there ever been a better incoming group of wide receivers than this one? I mean,
No.
ever?
No,
I mean,
no,
no. I mean, and I don't think it's close. I mean, because again, we talk about Terry, $23 million man McLaurin. I mean, when he committed to Ohio State, that was met with a collective yawn, and I think he had to come to camp at Ohio State like 11 times to get his offer or something like that. So
no.
he wasn't like some whiz bang, you know, you know,
No.
let's all get excited to recruit. I mean, these guys that they're bringing in right now are the bluest of blue chips, and I don't think none of us have ever seen anything like it. So it's kind of hard to really. I feel like USC during the Pete Carroll years when they were just selecting guys from across the country. I guess we've become Pete Carroll, and that's kind of fun. I guess that makes you Ed Ogeron, and it makes me Lane Kiffin or something like
Like
that.
you would be like you're Norm Chow. I
Norm Chow.
I no, I agree, and I think that like the cool thing is like there's a culture with Brian Hartline's wide receiver room where talent kind of begets talent, and guys like Marvin, guys like Ennis want to learn from Marvin and Jackson Smith-Njigba and Garrett Wilson and Olave. It's just a really cool room to be a part of now because you know that the top guys in that room are going to be not just first round picks, like top 10 picks, like top 15 picks. Like last year we had that run in the draft with Garrett and Olave and JMO. That's unbelievable how good that is. And then, kids are seeing, hey, if I come in this offense, receivers is kind of like being like an NBA player. I mean, you want to play with great receivers because then you're not going to get doubled. They're not going to roll coverage to you. Or if they do, the other guy's going to get shredded. Like if you go double team Marvin Harrison this year, Emeka Egbuka will absolutely destroy you. And I think that that's something that, these guys are realizing, hey, if I team up with my boys Carnell and JJ and, you get Mylan Graham, I mean, there's just nowhere to hide. The Rogers brothers, even though they're not brothers, I call them the Rogers brothers. I think that it's really cool. I think that there's a culture in that room and even in the quarterback room of waiting your turn, getting better every day. If you do the things Brian Hartline tells you to do, it'll come. And I think it's even enhanced even more now that Brian Hartline's the offensive coordinator because now he has like his hands on the steering wheel. So it's different when he is sitting in the back seat running the receiver room, but now like he's driving the bus and he gets to, hey, who needs touches? Because I'm the guy dialing up the plays. Who's been good in practice this week? Because I'm going to get you 10 touches, 15 touches. A lot of these coaches, on Thursday night, they've got a little sheet where they say, okay, Marvin, he's been good this week. We're going to get him 12 touches. Brandon Ennis had a really good week. We're going to get him 4 touches. Like they kind of work through a tick sheet when they make guys the primary receivers. And I think that now that Brian's called the plays, man, we are going to be air raid supreme. I can't wait to watch it. Another thing that I love about Air, and it's funny we've gone this long without talking about him, is that his tight end from this film is here, Jelani Thurman, who is one of my favorite films I've ever watched. And watching Air throw, have his security blanket. And again, I know we always joke about the Ohio State tight end basically being like a sixth offensive lineman and an extra tackle. But, last year, I mean, Cade Stover was really active. Mitch Rossi was really active. We've had a run of some really good tight ends. Even Jeremy Ruckert went 3rd round. So I think Jelani's a guy that's got a lot of ability. He's got a lot of upside. And the fact that, his quarterback is coming with him, it's kind of like when an NFL team drafts, a college tight end to go with the rookie quarterback. It just seems to make sense. And it seems like a smart move. So I'm excited about that. I might toss some Jelani on here too. This thing still has another 5 minutes to go, which is amazing. But we'll take some questions on you guys. Defensive recruitment. See, I think we're going to get the 2 corners from Ohio in all likelihood. I think that, James Laurinaitis has been killing it on the linebacker front. I think we're going to get Peyton Pierce. There's a lot of defensive ends that are national guys that run on right now. But I think defense-wise, Nevada, are you worried at all about the defense? I'm not. I think that like adding James is a big shot in the arm for the linebacker recruiting. And there's a couple really good corners already in Ohio. But what are your thoughts on the defensive recruiting, Nevada?
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. And again, in these days, the offense is overpowered. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, the offense is overpowered, and the most overpowered of the offensive positions are quarterback and wide receiver. So if you're winning at quarterback and if you're winning at wide receiver, you're winning in the college football game in 2023, and that's just the way it is. And people can talk about winning in the trenches and the big guys and the big uglies, and But the bottom line is, right now it's mainly a pitch and catch game with quarterbacks and wide receivers, and obviously if you can disrupt with elite defensive ends, so much the better, or cover with your corners. But we're winning at the key positions, and like you said, good thing is the stock's up in Ohio for a couple of corners, which will really help. And I like the development of the guys that we got. So no, I think things are coming along, and having James is just so huge. I think he's going to have an impact on the defensive side of recruiting equal to what Brian Hartline had on the offensive side. And I think you need to have that young guy. If you look at the defensive coaches, we're just getting a little old on that side. We don't have a lot of coaches on that side, and the guys that we do have are older. And I think having James on that side is just a breath of fresh air, and really helps out for Ohio State. And I think it's going to pay big dividends.
Yeah, James is, I mean, his upside is 5-star superstar head coach at some point. I just think he's got it. I've said that to him a million times, that he'd be a rock star head coach. And here he is. He got out of the broadcasting world and got into the sweatshirt and got the whistle. And I think he's going to kill it as a recruiter. I think he's going to kill it as the leader of a program. He reminds me of Luke, but I think he has more upside than Luke, because I think he has more personality than Luke. And I love Luke Fickell, but I'm just being honest. Like, if you ask me, pick stocks in who's a young head coach, like, I think obviously, Brian Hartline mentioned that, he eventually wants to be an NFL head coach. I think that James could do whatever he wants. Those are all guys that could potentially be the Ryan Day successor. And Ryan Day's still young, but again, you just never know. Gene Smith, I'm sure, has a short list in his desk of if Ryan Day would go to the New England Patriots when Bill Belichick retired or whatever, like, who would be his first calls. And I think that, Luke would be one, and Hartline, and it'd be a real interesting list. Got a super chat. D Sonny, appreciate you, brother, as always. We always appreciate these super chats. These are guaranteed to get answered. So thank you guys. Before the days when everybody had a highlight tape, who do you guys think had the biggest buzz amongst the team coming onto campus? That's a great question. Nevada, I'll let you go first, and then I'll go with mine, because there was a guy coming in to Ohio State when I was there that had a lot of buzz. But who would you say, Nevada?
Well, I mean, the biggest buzz that I can remember coming on would have been Alonzo Spellman. Alonzo Spellman was back before highlight tapes, and it was really in the days of the Bill Kurlick 900 number, where he'd stretch it out with like 9 mentions of like 1-star recruits from Ohio, and then at the end he'd get to the Alonzo Spellman update after you waited 15 minutes on the phone for $3.99 a minute. So yeah, he was doing well. But yeah, Spellman, I always just remember that one, because that was, they described him as being from like a different planet. And when he came to Ohio State, I'd never seen anything quite like him. And then he went to the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys never seen anything quite like him either. So he was one for the books, and certainly one that I always remember.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's got to be Ted Ginn. I mean, in 2004, it was my second year. This kid was a 5-star. Most services had him rated as a cornerback, and he never played a snap of corner at Ohio State. He went straight to the receiver room. I thought he was going to be a corner. I thought he was going to be Charles Woodson, but he showed up. He's okay. I mean, Ted, he isn't much to look at, especially when he was 18. He was a thin little kid. Again, like, we had the year before, we had Mike Jenkins, who was a first-round pick. We had some, Chris Gamble. We had some guys that were, some studs. And so even Drew Carter was a guy that was a 4'3" guy, 6'4" guy, big guy. And so, little Teddy shows up, and, he's okay. The first day or two, he's like, all right. And then, we get to like our first fall scrimmage, because again, this is a time when kids didn't get here in June. He did not enroll early. He showed up like August 5th. That was his first day. And, we're in pads, and like after the first week, we have a scrimmage, and he takes a punt to the crib, and he had a couple long touchdowns, and I was like, yeah, this kid's the deal now. I mean, he's going to be a big impact guy for us. And and we stunk that year to start the year off. Ted didn't play as much. Gonzo didn't play as much. Santonio was a starter, and then we had some other guys that played. But as the season evolved, and they started playing Gonzo more, and Teddy Moore and Troy Smith, and all of a sudden the offense just took flight. And Troy and Ted had a great connection. Troy and Santonio had a great connection. But Ted Ginn was the guy that he was one of the original hype monsters. And I was honestly skeptical just because, I'd come in with Darius Hiley. He was like a 5-star corner, Superman, the whole nine. And I really liked Soup. He was a nice kid, but I knew after 5 minutes of our first All-Star practice that he wasn't, what he was cracked up to be. And I'm not saying that to crack on Soup, but I mean, he literally left the North-South practice like after the first day, which they'd never heard of. Like he literally got on a Greyhound bus and went back to Cleveland. And I was like, it was because Ryan Robinson and Tony Gonzalez were roasting him in practice. Like, I mean, destroying him. And I'm like, this guy's the 5-star, like next Deion Sanders cornerback. And, again, I'm always skeptical of these guys until I actually see them in person because you just never know. I mean, and we also had Dante Whitner in that class, and he had enrolled early, so he wasn't on our All-Star team. And Dante was the deal. He ended up being a top 10 pick, but Darius was rated just as high as Dontley. He might have been a little bit below him, but when Ted came in, I thought, is he going to be like Dante? Is he going to be like Supiley? And he was better than both, really. So Ted Ginn's my guy. In the chat, I'd love to see who you guys think. Some of you guys that are veterans. Who are some of the names that you remember back in the day before YouTube and highlight films? And I think back in the day they had like VHS tapes, but they didn't have it as aware as they do on Huddle and mechanisms like that. So, but yeah, I think Alonzo Spellman, that was a good take back. In terms of where these guys fit, that's a great question because JJ to me is an X. The X is the Calvin Johnson. He's the guy you run your offense through. That's the big dog, number one receiver. Mike Thomas filled that position. I think Mylan's a Z. Z's the speed guy. That's Terry McLaurin. That's Jaden Ballard this year. Fleming. When we had Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, and Olave, Garrett Wilson was the X, and Olave was the Z. And then you put Jackson Smith and Jigba at the H, which is the slot. So I think that is the most appropriate comparison. Do you agree with that, Nevada?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think what's so nice about this is these two guys really do complement. They're not like duplicative, and they really are. Yeah. Guys that can kind of fill different roles in the offense, and for Ohio State, those things just fit. And when that happens, man, boy, you can make magic on the offense.
Yeah, I totally agree, and again, I think Aaron Noland is the guy who's coming into like that's like you want to talk about the spot. I was stunned when Dylan Raiola decommitted. I don't miss him. Again, I think wish the kid well and everything, but I just thought it was crazy. Some of these kids are passing up on taking the controls of this offense with Ryan Day, Brian Hartline calling the plays in that receiver room. Because again, I'm the biggest infrastructure guy you'll ever meet. I think that quarterbacks are only as good as the people around them. I think that there are some that are ultra elite, like Aaron Rodgers, who can raise up, everybody and make them into an elite team. But, I think in college, you really need to have guys around you. And in college, there's no salary cap. There's no, hey, we have to get rid of our star number 2 receiver because we have to pay, we have to get rid of T Higgins because we have to pay Jamar Chase $30 million a year now. So we have to trade T Higgins because we can't afford to have 2, a guy making 20 and a guy making 30. Like that's going to be the Bengals quandary. But in college, it's like you can get 3 Jamar Chases every year or 3, Garrett Wilsons or whatever. So I think, Ayers coming into a great spot. I think that he's a guy that he'll probably get a little bit of a Buckeye bump in the rankings because I think that some of these recruiting services bump these guys up when they go into situations because they don't want to look like they have egg on their face with their evaluations when Air ends up, being a star in college and they're like, wow, they had him as the 87th ranked, player in the country and the 5th or 6th or 8th quarterback. I think that they kind of rearrange that when these guys end up at Ohio State because, they're going to get propelled upwards just because of what Ryan Day and Brian Hartline do with quarterbacks. Yeah, I love this. I love this kid. Yeah, it's funny that Israel, that's a great point, the Vic swag. It's funny because like Vic, lefty, obviously he's an African-American kid. He's from Georgia. I can see that. Obviously he's not anywhere near as fast as Vic, but he's a dynamic player. And again, like I think that the statistics or the productivity are what's exciting. That's something that, I think a lot of people are critical with Dylan Raiola is that his statistics this year really weren't that great for being the number 1 overall player in the country, playing at Chandler, which is a powerhouse school in Arizona. They have open enrollment. They have, like, I don't know if it's like 4,000 kids in the high school. It's a humongous high school. and they weren't that good, and they got crushed in the high school playoffs, and he ended up transferring to Pinnacle. But again, a kid that's transferred 3 times in 3 years is a question mark. This kid is entrenched as a leader and a captain of his program. So again, you have to look at every little thing, and sometimes when you're splitting hairs, it's not always fun, but you have to evaluate it. I think it's just part of the culture when it's a portal thing, and when kids can potentially have to wait 2-3 years to play because you've got a couple young quarterbacks in front of you. It's something you have to evaluate. Nevada, these guys, they've scrimmaged on Saturday. They've got, I love Ryan Day is actually having them practice on Friday. So they're going to have not a scrimmage, but they're going to kind of put the screws to him on Friday this week so that they can give them Saturday, Sunday off for Easter, which I love. But your thoughts on where the team is thus far through a couple weeks of spring practice?
Oh, this has been a terrific spring practice. I mean, this has been good. Um, you know, the defense. I know that there's some people that are skeptical about the defense, or skeptical about Knowles and about the super high risk gimmicky cover zero Y press hippo defense that he runs every play, where it's like engage 8 and he blitzes everybody and leaves everybody on an island. But no, all kidding aside, I think the defense has really played well, and the defense is showing some cohesion. The emergence of the cornerbacks has just been really, probably the story of the spring so far. And you know, I think the defense just they have a coherence and a organization that's just palpable about them right now. And I also think hint that they're figuring out what to do about the Sonny Styles conundrum, and we're probably going to have a little bit more about that maybe in the next couple of days on Buckeye Scoop. So for those people that are subscribers, keep an eye out for that, because I think that there might be some movement on the Sonny Styles front, and I think people will be pleased with what they hear and with what the plans are for Mr. Styles in 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, I agree. I was when you told me what you heard about Sonny Styles and what they're going to do to utilize him, I was really excited. I was like, that's exactly what I would do. It's not what Jim Knowles has typically done, but the way they're going to weaponize him, I think, is really exciting. If he's going to be a major factor this year, and again, I think he's only going to be here for 3 years, so it's like you better start. He's kind of like Paris. Like we've said a million times, he's the same as Paris Johnson. Like Paris Johnson was a 6'7" prototype left tackle, but we had Nick Petit and we had DeWand. So Paris had to go play guard. So Sonny Styles, I think, is a prototype strong safety, but we've got, Josh Proctor has been balling. Lathan Ransom is back there playing strong and free. I mean, they're rotating back and forth. And so Sonny's got to, he's got to play a new spot. And we're going to detail that pretty in depth tomorrow. I'm really excited about that. It was a great piece of intel. I also, so we got a little bit of this film here. Nevada, there's been a lot of angst about the offensive line. Zen Mikulski missed Saturday's practice, so you had to move Tigra up with the ones full time, and Miles Walker had to go with the second team right tackle a lot. Again, he's a kid that should still be in high school, so he got worked over pretty good. Again, I've been there. I've actually been the graduate assistant who has to make the offensive line rotations, and I know that when one guy goes down, sometimes it can be really tough to fill it up, especially if it's a tackle. I've lived that many times, trying to figure out how to muck it up and make guys, just kind of fit in there. What's your level of concern? Do you have any concern with the offensive line right now?
I mean, I really don't. I think that we've only really got one question mark right now, and that's really at right tackle. And it's kind of an open competition. I still think that there's probably 2 or 3 guys that could come from the back of the pack and jump in there if they couldn't. But I like what Tigres doing, and I think I think Ohio State, we could play right now and be just fine with our situation on the offensive line, and I think we've got more depth than we even know that we have. And no, I really don't have any concerns, and that really comes from talking to the people in the room. They don't have concerns. If they had concerns, believe me, I'd be the first one on here telling people, "Hey, I'm concerned." We've talked about this in the past, where I'm like, "Hey, I've got concerns about the cornerback position because we don't have a lot of guys right now that can play cornerback." And then when we have guys that can play cornerback, and you get Davison in the transfer portal, then we're not so worried about it. So it's not like, oh, Nevada he'll just say everything's going to be okay. I'm just not concerned because the guys in the offensive line room think that they have dudes there. They think they got guys that can play, and I tend to agree with that.
Well, I just remember this time last year, Jim Knowles' defense, we're thinking, the jack is going to be a big thing. He had 57 sacks his last year at Oklahoma State. That was going to be a big thing. And, we're going into it, and I'm hearing, JT and Jack Sawyer are just killing Paris Johnson and Dewan, killing them. Like multiple sacks every practice, dynamic duo, like Bosa and Chase Young on each end. And then, you fast forward 6 months to the season, and Dewan and Paris make first team All-American. Paris is about to be a top 10 pick. Dewan's probably going to be a second round pick. And, JT and Jack kind of, they had okay seasons, but I don't think it was anywhere near the stretch that we thought we were going to get out of them. In Jim Knowles' defense, where, again, at Oklahoma State, he had 57 sacks with guys that aren't as good as Mike Hall and Tyleek and Teron Vincent and Zach Harrison and the like. And, so again, this time last year, man, I'm like, oh God, we're going to have 60 sacks. Oh God, we're going to get out of the quarterback. And really, like, our pass rush wasn't great, and our pass protection is actually really good. So, I mean, again, a lot can change. Zen and Tigra both know they have to get better. I think that kind of the ace in the hole for Justin Fry is, and I've said it a million times, move Donnie Jackson to left tackle, put Josh Fry at right tackle. Donnie played left tackle last year in the spring, and he was Paris's backup, and he looked really good. So, I think that the key to this offense, outside of just having, an accurate quarterback, is having great pass protection from the tackles, particularly because those guys are out on islands. Ryan Day doesn't like to leave Baxton very often. So you need guys that can hang in there like Paris and Dewan did. So I think that's kind of an ace in the hole. And I still think that could happen. Again, I think everything's going to be on the table after spring. I think that, Zen and Tigra, they're still young guys. I think that, again, I mentioned earlier that Justin Fry probably should have had those guys practicing right tackle last year. Zen was the backup left tackle. Tigra was playing guard. So they weren't getting the footwork that they needed at right tackle last year. So I think that was kind of a waste. Again, if you could go back in time and say, look, put Josh Fry at left tackle last year, and put those other guys at right tackle, and I think that would have been more beneficial for their development. But you can't go back in time, and these guys just got to keep working to get their fundamentals and their footwork down, because it just takes a gazillion reps, and it's hard to do. Again, if you go out in your driveway, if your right hand is your dominant hand when you shoot a basketball, go out in the driveway and shoot left-handed and see how long it takes you to become proficient at it, because that's kind of what it's like when you switch your footwork at offensive tackle. I had to do it. I hated doing it. I was much more comfortable on the right side. I loved playing on the right side and stayed on the right side. We have a super chat. Another one. D. Sunday, appreciate you, my man. This is a great question. Nevada, do you have any rebuttal before I get into the 2-minute drill on the offensive line?
No, I think you're exactly right. I think you've got options, but I really think it's going to be the way that it is right now, and I think I'd be okay with Tigra out there, and I think he'll be just fine. He's a guy that he just needs reps. He needs reps, and like you said, if you'd have asked us last year who was ahead, the offensive line or the pass rush, we'd have definitely both gone all in on the pass rush, and it turned out to be exactly the opposite. So. Yeah, no, I think Tiger's going to surprise some people, and I think he's going to lock down that right hand spot and be there for a while. I just have a hunch.
Yeah, I think him, Zen. I mean, I would put Luke Montgomery out there and have him work to pass. Luke's got to get heavier. He gets put on his butt a lot, and that's not anything wrong with that. He's just a young kid, and he's light. He's still trying to figure out how to carry some weight, but he's got excellent footwork and excellent speed, and he's going to be a big time left or right tackle for us as a pass blocker. And again, if I had 100 points to spend in my attributes, I'd spend 99 of them on pass blocking and 1 on run blocking, just because that's how important it is, not just at Ohio State, but in the modern NFL. If you want to be a gazillionaire, be a great pass blocker. So inside of a 2-minute drill, this is a great question. Is the entire drive scripted? Does the quarterback have more freedom? What gets cut out to move faster? So it is not scripted generally, just because you kind of have to go based on what happens. Everything is called from the headset, signaled in. I think a lot of times teams like to start off with a draw or a short screen to kind of get the chains moving. You go to the line. The way Ohio State does it is that the offensive line gets a signal from Justin Fry or the GA for the protection, and then the receivers get the signal from whoever's signaling the other GA or whoever for the routes. And again, it's a super quick, efficient thing. I think that the way that we run our offense now is very conducive to a 2-minute drill because you don't have to signal in numbers. You don't have to signal, you don't have to go slow. I mean, it's kind of like you just speed up the regular pace that you do everything at. And like I said, it's something that you practice usually every, in camp, you do it a few days at the end of practice versus, the first 1-0 versus 1D. We always did it on Thursdays, which is kind of like the lighter day of practice. You practice getting on the ball, running to the ball. You practice what we used to call Mayday team. We call it our field goal, like our hurry up field goal, the Mayday team, where you'd say Mayday, Mayday, and everyone comes running on the field, and the clock's running. You don't have a timeout, and you gotta get up, get set, snap the ball, complete the kick. So I think it's just like something that you have to practice a lot. The receivers, they're used to getting the signals. The quarterback is used to getting the signal. The offensive line gets signals now, which is something we never used to do. But it's a lot quicker than back in the day when we used to use wristbands, like with Jim Tressel. So I think that but it's never scripted. It's kind of based on where you're at on the field. Do you make a completion? Because you don't know if you complete a pass. If the guy misses the tackle, it's a 60-yard completion. You're down on the 10. It's hard to script that. But there's always a handful of plays that you like to call in a 2-minute situation where the quarterback's comfortable with it, the receivers are comfortable with it, we're proficient with it, and they're just nice, easy throws. Obviously, it's going to be, depending on the clock, you might be working the sideline a lot, depending on how many timeouts you have. It kind of affects your play calling ability, and really, what's the score? Are you down? Is it right before half? You're trying to get another touchdown before you go in the locker room. Is it end of the game and you're down 3, you're down 7, you're down 2, you're down 8? Whatever it is, there's a bunch of variables that can control it, but generally we signal everything. So that's a fantastic question. I love it. Really good stuff. Nevada, I'm going to give you this one. If we have a top 10 defense this year, do you think we can win in Ann Arbor? I think I know what your answer is going to be.
Well, we better. we better. We better, or we're gonna miss Ryan. All these nice things we're saying about Ryan, we're gonna miss. No, look, we've eventually. I'm gonna keep predicting us to beat Michigan, and eventually I'll be right. No, we're better than Michigan. The last 2 years have been an aberration. It's not a trend, and you just can't keep getting by with subpar recruiting, and Michigan really has been getting by with subpar recruiting. They don't have a great recruiting base. They don't really have a national recruiting brand. I mean, Harbaugh's done okay, but if you look at his classes, they haven't been really exceptional, especially at the positions that we talked about. And I think order will be restored. Like I said, I tip my hat to them the last couple of years. They've gotten it done, but no, the buck stops here this year, and we restore order and thrash the Wolverines, and hopefully, Ryan Day gets. This is a giant monkey that's off his back, because I can't even imagine the kind of pressure that would start building if he lost a third time against Michigan. I think it'd be enough to rout him out of town? I don't. I think they'd give him one more time in Columbus, but it's kind of the pressure that Harbaugh felt the first few years when he just could not beat. It's not like Day hasn't beaten Harbaugh, but when Harbaugh couldn't beat Meyer, and it just kept piling on and piling on and piling on, and that pressure becomes cumulative. They think these games are these one-shot occasions, but they're not. The stuff that's happened in previous years definitely affects what happens in the subsequent ones. And this one, there's going to be more pressure, but look, we're going to be better than Michigan, and hopefully that'll get it done.
Yeah, I was as stunned as I've ever been in my life after the home game this year versus Michigan. On talent, you look at our pro day attendance, you look at the projections, the mock drafts, like number 1 overall quarterback, 2 first-round tackles, Marvin Harrison. I mean, it's like we just had a massive amount of talent, a massive talent edge, in my opinion, over Michigan, and we just didn't get it done. It was one of those things where I thought we had all the motivation in the world after how we got waxed in Ann Arbor. I thought these guys were going to play hard, and they did for half. But again, in that game, you got to play mistake free, man. And we made some big time mistakes, coming down the stretch, especially defensively. And it's hard, and we biffed a fake punt. So, again, I think that we're, it's not that we're close. I think that, like, we should be beating these guys, but for whatever reason, something's not clicking in there because it's not a talent thing. I mean, I think that we've out talented them the last 2 years, but we walked into a fist fight 2 years ago. I think our guys literally thought it was going to be easy. This past year, I have no idea because like after you get waxed the year before, you have a whole year of motivation. I don't know, but this is a huge year for Ryan. It's a huge year for the leadership of the team. Because I think that the leaders are the guys that got to really carry this one up there. Because I want up there.
But Kirk, that's a great point though, and we've been talking a little bit about this on the board. I don't think the team had great leadership last year, and I think that came from the fact that the best players on the team were really younger guys, and I think younger guys sometimes, how it is, they have trouble taking leadership positions on football teams. They're looking to the older guys, and CJ, for all his great ability and number one pick. He's not really a vocal holler guy, leader type of alpha, lead you into battle type of thing. As for last year's game against Michigan, just look what happened in the next game. We go blow to blow with Georgia. We come one bad call against Marvin Harrison away, one field goal away from beating Georgia, winning the national championship in a game that Georgia won by 50 points over a team that beat Michigan. So were we better than Michigan last year? I think so. That game's in Columbus. Should that mean something? Yeah, I think so. So that game will always go down as one of the most inexplicable. I mean, much more so than even '98 Michigan State, which was weird, but it happened. Like last year's game was just, I don't even understand what happened. I for the life of me, I felt like at halftime we should have been up 20-3 and or worse, and we weren't. And it just got away from us. But eventually that stuff comes. You can't just keep playing that way. If you're playing that way, it's you can't just keep escaping fate, because eventually talent and ability takes over in the big game. It always has, and I think that happens in 2023. But I interrupted you, so I apologize.
No, you're good. I agree. I think you need your quarterback to dominate. I don't, CJ had some gaudy yards, but there were some times where we needed plays, and again, it's tough because when you're the quarterback, you get all the adulation, but you also get a lot of the blame when things don't go great. And I think that I was lucky I played with Troy, and Troy in 05 saved us because we were losing with like 7 minutes to go, and we needed 2 scores, and Troy, San Antonio, Gonzo, Pittman. I mean, obviously, we blocked while defense held out in the end, but you need guys to step up and do those big time massive performances. I mean, obviously, the late Dwayne Haskins had one of the greatest performances ever. Urban's last game in the shoe, 62 points, threw for about 1 million yards. I think that's the kind of thing you need, and we never really got that all CJ. And again, it's not all his fault, but he's also the quarterback. That's part of the gig. And when you're the quarterback, you're the de facto leader, and you got to walk into that one. But again, like last year, it was just they knew that they got waxed the year before. They had all the motivation in the world. It was senior day. A lot of great players playing their last game, including CJ Stroud, Paris Johnson, and to not get it done was stupefying to me. But yeah, that's for another time. But yeah, this has been a great show. Nevada, we're gonna wrap this thing up, but we really had some good stuff tonight. Any final thoughts as we close this thing out? Aaron Noland looks like he's next on deck for the Bucks. A couple practices, and then we got the spring game in a couple weeks. But any final thoughts?
Now, just huge wide receiver commitment today. We're on Aaron Noland watch for the next few days, weekend, and look out for a Sonny Styles nugget coming your way in the next couple days as well. So lots going on in Ohio State land. It's going to be commitment palooza here coming up pretty soon. So get ready for a little Buckeye blitz on the recruiting front.
Yeah, I'm really stoked about that. I think it's going to be fantastic. Again, appreciate you guys tuning in. Awesome show. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you for great community, guys. Comments in the comments. I need you guys to shout out where you guys are from. I also need to know which of the most recent recruits are you the most excited about, or commitments. Excuse me. We've had some big time ones. I love Mylan Graham's film. Like I said, he is a all gas guy. He is pedal to the metal, like just elite speed. And it's fun when the commits are all excited when a new kid commits, and kind of the camaraderie you see it being formed between the recruiting class. Because that's always the cool thing about getting recruited. When you commit, you kind of join a little family. And there's the family of Ohio State football, and then there's the family of your own individual recruiting class, because those guys, they're kind of like your homies. You're going to go to All-Star games together. You're going to see them at banquets and whatever the like. And it's always cool to see those guys and hook up with them on visits and whatever. And it'll be really fun to see how these guys go through the camp circuit and visit games and all that type of thing. So appreciate you guys as always. A fantastic show. BuckeyeScoop.com is absolutely crazy right now. It's on fire. Best community there is. The most active community there is by far. Bill Greene has just been absolutely killing it recently with a lot of the South Florida Express news, a lot of national news. So really good stuff, guys. But I really appreciate you guys as always. Shout out where you're from in those comments. I love hearing where you guys are watching from. So as always, never take that for granted. Thank you guys so much. It's been a great show today. Great show, as always. So thank you so much, Scoop family, and thank you, Buckeye Nation. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks. Go jump on BuckeyeScoop.com right now, because I'm heading there to the board to check out all this great reaction. Go Bucks.